Son las 12:02 en Colombia, pero vamos a esperar un minuto más a que se nos terminen de conectar todos. Mientras tanto, nos pueden ir contando de dónde se están
We are going
conectando.
to wait a little bit more until everybody arrives in order to start.
Bueno, se nos conectan desde México, desde Chile. Buenos días para todos. 12:03 de la tarde. Vamos a darle inicio a esta sesión.
Okay, we are going to start with this session. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. We have a hybrid between two events. It's the event for financial inclusion for SMEs, and at the same time, this is the second session of our learning week of O2LAC, motivating that digital transformation. We are having webinars dedicated to the service companies, and this event is like the beginning of an event that we're going to have in Jamaica. But this is an open event to all people from different industries that want to come to the face-to-face event. For people who don't know, O2LAC is a company where you can connect with more than 700,000 entrepreneurs and use different tools to expand your business and take advantage of the opportunities of the market. Everything's for free. If you don't have a profile in Connect Americas, please create one. It's for free, and it's very, very simple as registering in a social network. So my name is Camila Vargas. I'm part of the Connect Americas team. We have Patrick Kilian. He's the revenue manager of the company he works in today. He's going to talk about thriving the digital transformation. We are in this session of the 6th of June, factoring the service of this internationalization. And as I mentioned, today we have Patrick Kilian, Head of Revenue Mexico of Xepelin company. He has more than 10 years of experience in the financial industry and focusing on in digital markets, and he has a lot of experience with global customers and in different sectors and industries. Today, he's going to talk about factoring the service of internationalization and how to expand your geographic borders and sales with this new financial alternative, especially for the service companies, which are our main guests to this event. As we had a technical issue, I'm going to share Patrick's presentation with you. I have it here. Just give me a moment. Okay, I'll give the floor to you, Patrick. Good afternoon or good morning. I want to talk a little bit about how Xepelin was born and what Xepelin is. I think it's important to tell you a little bit of a couple of things. What the financial inclusion in the SMEs in Mexico and in Latin America. When we talk about financial inclusion, we talk about all initiatives, public and private, that want to make it easier to have access to financial services to the SMEs in Mexico and Latin America. According to some figures of the World Bank, only 45% of the small and of the SMEs in Latin America have access to financial services that are provided by banks, essentially. However, this figure is not the only one that shows the lack of access to these services, because we also identified huge financial exclusion in the SMEs. Some relevant information is 83% of micro projects don't have a bank account. 94% of the small companies don't have active credits with any financial institution either. And 1 out of 5 SMEs doesn't have a legal bank account. Maybe the main stakeholder has one bank account, but the company doesn't have one. So they operate without financial credits, which makes them difficult to grow. According to IMEFI, in Mexico, we have around 4.9 millions of companies. And out of them, 99% are SMEs. In Mexico, 72% of formal employment comes from SMEs, and around 52% of the GDP of Mexico comes from those companies. Additionally, out of this GDP, close to 50% of this money, that to have an idea, we are talking about $350,000 million. They are like trapped. What does that mean? That money doesn't have any way out to financial products that help those SMEs to have liquidity and to work correctly and to work in a sustainable way. Even though they represent like a big portion, the biggest portion of employment that generates 72% of the GDP, out of 100 companies that start operations, 34 close in the first year of operation. 60 of those companies close before 5 years of operations. 28 companies survive for more than 10 years, and only 10 companies reach the 20 years of operation. So if you notice it, most of the companies are born and die very, very fast in Mexico and in Latin America. These figures evidence a very dark scenario for the SMEs, which are looking for a sustainable way to keep their financial capital. So taking that into account, we thought of different proposals that look to facilitate the access to financial services to the SMEs, and also to see some development models that allow them to develop faster. Now, due to all these problems, Xepelin was born. Can you show the next slide, please? So what are we looking for? In Mexico, we have had, but so far, 28,000 users. We have 28,000 users. Here, as you see, we have 150 companies in Mexico that are considered as big companies. But what happens with all the supply chains of these big companies? They are usually constituted by SMEs. So close to 72% of the productive chain of big companies are SMEs. And there are different programs that help these SMEs to have access to these services, but nobody runs the risk to say, okay, a SMEC is not gonna give me like a relationship between a huge customer and a company. And then there is an amount of money that is trapped, because if we know that if we give that money to the SMEC, they will be able to use it correctly and wisely. So that's why Xepelin was born. We wanted to create a platform to help SMECs in Latin America. So what do we do in Xepelin? And I think it's very, very important. Many of these SMECs, as it might happen in your countries, the stakeholder is the operator, is the CFO, is the sales director, and also the accountant. And they don't have a CFO for real. So they just try to handle the flows and they try to manage these capital flows. But so far, we haven't, before the creation of Xepelin, we didn't find a company that had a holistic vision of all the income and the money that went out of a company. So what did we create? We created a platform and we organized it. We organized the money of the company so that they had a complete vision of their operations. We wanted to help them that, for example, if they needed some funding, if they needed money, to give them like more ideas and more tools in order to be successful. We have 28,000 users, and more or less 70% are active users. And this helps the companies to have the necessary liquidity to face their obligations. And also the company doesn't go into a huge debt. Next slide, please. Well, this is some of the money we have made, as everything's public. Well, you can see it there. We have to try, we help them also with the accounts receivable and accounts payable. Okay, so a little bit more about what we do. We give liquidity on a digital platform using accounts receivable and accounts payable. So at the end of the day, we know that, well, in Mexico and in most countries in Latin America, we have the electronic invoicing. So when we extract the information that each one of our customers that start using the platform, we give them like a very simple vision so that they see their accounts receivable and their accounts payable, and then we give them some liquidity options. On the accounts receivable, we give them the opportunity of using factoring, for example. And we have a factoring program, and that's very useful to them because they can have access to that accounts receivable without having a big debt. We also have a system that tells you about the delay for the funding. This helps the companies to make informed decisions. So they know that if you sell something to a customer with 90 days of credit, you'll have to ask for funding for a period of 96 days, for example. So you have liquidity, and it avoids the companies to have to acquire like payments that they won't be able to make. So the idea is to give the customers the liquidity they need in order to face all the payment obligations, and so that they don't have problems with their providers through funding or through their own money. We homologate the delay between the accounts receivable and the accounts payable. So when they have the collection, they don't have any problems because the provider will always get the money on time, so that you don't have to put pressure to your providers, and then you will have a better relationship with your customers. If there is a situation in which you have like liquidity problems and you need money to pay salaries, taxes, something like that, you can anticipate the accounts receivable through the direct funding. And there we give you the money of the collection, sorry. And then once you get the money, then you pay us. So this helps the companies because the liquidity becomes something important. Because every day we have more SMEs and they keep on growing. So we help them to make informed decisions with our platform. Next slide, please. And everything happens electronically. If you ask what kind of customers we have customers that sell $5,000 every month, up to hundreds of millions of dollars of sales per month. So we have a huge range of SMEs and big companies too. And we do this every single day because we are passionate and understanding. We like to understand the company's problems, and especially the SMEs, because those are the ones that don't find any tools or services that help them have that liquidity so that they can operate easily. And that's a common problem in most countries, with a few exceptions. What we found is that the banks only offer some simple credits, which are long-term, and they are based on the capability to acquire a debt of the company. So it's very difficult. But our concept on Xepelin is that you just pay what you consume. That is to say, we don't have, people don't have to pay for the line of credit. We don't force you to buy a product or a service. If the only thing you want is to have information to make better decisions, then you register with us and then you have that service for free. And if in the future you are interested or you have some liquidity problem, then we can help you. And we can do that thanks to the technology and the data we work with. Direct funding helps the companies to pay the accounts receivable. And the way we see the information of the last 10 years of the company, and we see how the sales flows work. For example, if it's a sugar company that sells sugar to Coke, and we see your sales behavior with them for 10 years, then we know exactly when you are going to collect. We know what percentage of the invoice you are going to charge, and it is there when we make the money available, so that the companies have liquidity for any problem that your operation may have. Next slide, please. This is how this works. At the end of the day, it's a platform, a totally digital platform where you can have access to your funding. The process to register is very simple. It's similar to Facebook. What happens on Facebook is very intuitive, very friendly, and the funding is very, very fast too. If you're a company that sells between $5,000 to $10 million per year, in around 3 days, you have your credit line to start operating. If you're a bigger company, then it usually takes a week to approve the credits. But what the SMEs require is a fast and accessible solution, and something that doesn't force them to be spending money on commissions for something they are not going to use. So as I'm telling you here, there is just one financial cost according to what you need. The next slide, please, Cami. Okay, the next one is the fast payment. Here, we accredit the big company, and thanks to that, we can give some liquidity options to the provider, and that implies to have a better tax to anticipate those cash flows that the buyer gives the customer. It's pure liquidity, which means that it's not an accounts payable, but it's a sale. And the payment deadline works at corporate level. That helps the providers to have liquidity and the supply chain. Number one. Number two, that tax is going to be more competitive than if you wanted to have a credit with any other institution. And it doesn't create more debts for the company. So you are monetizing and just charging that or getting the money of that accounts receivable faster. And it's a platform. Everything is connected on SAP. The provider asks the discount in advance. The corporate accepts and then they receive the funds. It's one-stop shop in Xepelin. And you have a lot of visibility for these flows. If you want to use it for fast payment, you have that. If you want a credit line to have some products, you also have it. You take advantage of the tool so that you can have the information accessible at all times about or your income and your obligations. And the same engine of the platform helps you to make decisions on how you could have some leverage and when you can't. And this helps the SMEC to be self-sustainable and to capitalize and have some kind of liquidity over their main activity, which is the product or service they are selling, and that helps them to grow in time. Next slide, please. This is where you can see, like, it's like the tax page of the companies. You can have a full vision of the taxes so that you know who your main customers are and your main providers. You can play with the information there. It's like a tax mailbox. You can see some commercial discounts that you've had, how much money has been paid on invoices. And you can do this little by little, or by modules, or by specific periods of time. That is to say, you can select dates of 10 years ago to see the behavior you had with a customer, with a specific customer. And you can see how the invoicing has happened with that customer. Or you can have like a general view of all your accounts receivable and your providers. That's information that is up to date every 7 minutes. So it's very easy to have access to this. And it's totally up to date. And RP usually doesn't have these kind of products, or if they have them, then the companies have to pay a lot of money for it. And in our case, this is for free. Next slide, Camila, please. That's like more of the same information in more detail. If you want it, then just let me know and then I can send it to you. And now payments. What we do is like act as a bank, where we can pay all the providers with the money the company has, or we help them find funding the accounts payable. There's a way to make all the payments automatic. And well, you can just ask for the funding to Xepelin, and we'll help you to handle payments with your providers according to the services and products you have, so that the companies don't have to go through the situation of not being able to deliver their products or services to their customers. Next slide, please. On payments, you can centralize and visualize everything. Here you can see national and international payments. International payments, as you know, well, normally in Mexico, well, the common thing is that most of the international customers come from the United States. The platform allows you to upload those invoices of the accounts payable, and you can have information of all the providers and their bank accounts, so that you can ask for the funding in order to pay the accounts payable you have to pay in dollars, and fund the ones you have to pay in pesos. Something else that is very important about payments is that many of these SMEs work in the domestic market. In the domestic market, it's customers that charge their money in pesos. But we have also international payments, or you can have the funding, and we use the type of change that is that has the day of the operation, that is in force, and then you still have the debt in pesos. So you mitigate the risks of the currency, you know, the changes in the currency. So if you take a plan of 180 days, then you are going to know how much money you are going to pay. So the utility of your businesses is not going to be affected by some abrupt change in the markets with the currency, because that is difficult to control. So this is what we do. Now, something that is very important. We don't do this product, but anyway, we work with this. When the SMEs don't, oh, I'm sorry, but I can't hear him anymore. I can't hear him anymore. No, no.
Okay. Patrick, ¿pues por ahí? ¿Pues por ahí? Patrick. Bueno, voy a comunicarme con él por mensaje. Veamos cómo continuamos.
No.
No, sigo sin escucharte, Patrick.
The presenter has some problems with the audio.
La verdad no te escuchamos.
Listo, en unos minutos se nos reconecta Patrick. Ya regresa. Por ahora estamos leyendo sus preguntas. Ahora al final de la ponencia las vamos a responder. Recuerden que si tienen preguntas pueden hacerlo o los invitamos por favor a hacerlo, hacerlas a través de la funcionalidad de preguntas y respuestas de
If you
Zoom.
have some questions, please use the functionality of questions and answers also, not through the chat, so that we can have a better control of that. Okay, Patrick is back. Now we can hear you. I don't know until what part you heard me, but what I was saying was that for people who want to, or companies who want to become international, there are other companies that provide products and services and help them with their accounts payable. It's very important that companies know the different options in the market, because if there are like entrepreneurs here, or companies here, this is important for you in order to monetize that accounts payable, or those accounts payable, without over indebtedness. Because you have to meet certain requirements. Because when you start exporting, then you start doing it on a regular basis. And we have seen that the SMEX, to survive in the market, their option is to start working with international markets. There they have a lot of options that are not banks, because the banks have limited products, and only this kind of products is given to huge companies. So it is difficult to find, or to, yeah, it's difficult for the SMEX to find that kind of services. It's a tip I give you, because it's very interesting to have access to something like that. Now, something that I didn't mention and that is very important is that in Xepelin, for you to become one of our customers, our credit customers, no matter that you have a high invoicing, the only thing we ask for is that you have been in the market for more than 8 months. A bank usually asks for 1 or 2 years to give you some credit. So this is a very good option, and our intention is to become the Latin American CFO through a very differentiated product and a very simple experience for the SMEX through these products. So please register on the platform, and people who are interested in acquiring our services in Mexico or in Chile, where we have the product, yeah, come check the platform and start using our services, because the information service is totally free, for example. So you are very welcome to register with us. And if you have any kind of question or doubt, I am here to answer any questions. I hope this presentation gave you a clear idea of what we do, what we are, and also that it helps the Latin American SMEX. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Patrick. We want to remind the public and people who are connected that in Latin America, we have more than 2,600 fintech companies that work with different financial services. And in a moment, I'm going to send you through the chat and on your mail. I'm going to send it to your mail the recording of today's presentation. And you're going to get an article that summarizes the content that Patrick presented. And you are going to get also a report by the FinTech Ibero-American Chamber, where you see a list with the 2,600 FinTech companies of the region, so that you can find the factoring in your corresponding country. As we heard before, Xepelin works only for companies registered in Mexico and in Chile. But as I'm saying, there are 2,600 companies that work with these kind of financial services in the region. So we are going to start with the questions and answers. Jose Luis was asking if the services are for national operations or international only, or both. Because in Mexico and in Chile, you only do factoring between two companies, the one that sends the invoice and the one that acquires the debt. Well, they should be in Mexico or Chile, or there can be international operations too. Okay, the factoring issue, anticipating the accounts payable, it's done locally. Because we can see some payment complements, which are things that are not very easy to use, to see. So at the end, it's an important part that we can discount. There might be an international part. We can do a factoring, that is to say that we give you the liquidity, but then you have the obligation of the payment. That we can do, because the international flows of the SMEX we see are only 3 months old. But if your company is a company that is selling on a regular basis overseas, and we can confirm that, we can verify that, then we can see that as an option, and then it won't be a problem. And when it comes to payments, it can be national or international. So in that case, we don't ask for recurrence. What we ask is that they have a minimum invoice level. That is to say, if you want to become our customers, you need to have between 6 and 8 months operating legally, and that we can verify that information, and that you have a credit bureau, at least for the main stakeholder. In that case, we can help you. Gabriela Alarcón is asking about the rates, for example, in dollarized countries. Another person asked you where they don't have like the risk of the exchange rate. In that case, it's easier to have a very interesting interest rate. So how much added value a factoring gives instead of asking for a credit in order to keep on operating? So why use the factoring and not a credit? Well, there are many options, many answers. It depends on the size of the company. If you have the option to ask for a credit in a bank, of course, they have more competitive rates because they have the money of the savers and the kept money. We just work with capital. But the risk varies according to the size of the company. But we are still a very competitive option for SMEX in the market. But if you want to go to a bank to have some factoring, you need to have sales that are higher than the ones of a medium-sized company. So that's the first part that is a benefit of doing it with us. In a bank, you ask for a credit line, and if you're SMEC, if your credit is approved, they will give you only a simple credit, which is based on your payment capacity. That can help you if your intention is to have your productive plant. But if you want to be able to pay your expenses on an everyday basis, or if you want to have like a debt a long term, that's something different. So it becomes complicated in those cases. And besides, you have some added expenses. They charge for the rate, for structuring the credit. You have to go through a very slow and complicated process. And many SMECs don't meet the requirements. So depending on the kind of company you are, you can find competitive rates in different markets and with different partners. It could be like us, a Xepelin, we are a fintech, or it can be a bank. Now, the important thing is the product. Why you want the product? this is for you to be able to operate on a daily basis. If we talk about a simple credit that is there like for a year, and you will be paying interest for a year. And here, you just pay according to the amount of time that you need, and you recover your accounts, your collection. So it depends on how you want to use it. For me, and it's not because it's Xepelin, because I worked in banks. These kind of products are not offered to most companies. And I think it's a source of liquidity that is super important in order to operate with us. Now, we also give credit to big companies and public companies, and we are not the cheapest ones either. So what's the benefit they see with us? Like speed. At the end of the day, what you consume is what you pay. If you don't consume anything, you don't pay, but if you consume, you do. And also we give you a software that helps you to have healthy finances. So it's a mix of, let's say, of tools that we give our customers so that they can operate with us. And at the end of the day, we want to be a escape valve to help the SMEX. It doesn't have to be a customer that is constantly operating. We can live also having the banks. But we are a different option to support the SMEX. If you want a simple credit at the long term to improve your reproductive capacity, okay, go to the bank. It's better. But if you want to operate on a regular basis, come to Xepelin. That will be your best option. Because if in the future, if you don't have enough liquidity or a customer didn't pay you in time and you have to pay salaries, how are you gonna do it? With a simple credit? No, the answer is no. We are a tool so that SMEX in Latin America can grow and have the liquidity of that trapped money that is in the accounts payable, and you can have some certainty of the flows in order to operate. Someone is also asking about the minimum amounts or maximum accounts and the warranties that are asked in order to request this kind of funding. Small amounts, as I said, that at least you sell $5,000, which is 100,000 Mexican pesos per month. Warranties, I would say that in 97% of our credits, we don't ask for warranties. In 3%, yes, we do. And 3% is those companies that have like been operating only for 6 months and their operation is irregular. That is that they have like good, they make good money 1 month or 2, but then the next one not much, like that. But if you are operating, you have been operating for 1 year and the main stakeholder has good credit history, what we do is that we give the credit to the company and our guarantee is the main stakeholder, the collateral. So we have very few customers. We have asked real guarantee. So as I said, the first step to become a customer for us, asking for a credit, is the time the company has been operating for. But we give credit lines from 60,000 pesos to 100 million pesos. And minimum operation, we don't have any minimum. If you want to, you need 5,000 pesos because that's what you have to pay. Okay, it works with that. We consider like an extension for a tool for the needs the company, the SMEX have. We don't pay much attention to the amount of the invoices. So the only thing we have a look at is the invoice delay and the time the company has been operating for. Okay, Patrick, thank you very much. Oscar is asking me how could you seduce 28,000 customers only in 2 years of operation? Well, with the data, we are a fintech. So at the end of the day, we created modules that, 28,000 customers sounds like a lot, but we work with 4.9 million companies in Mexico. How do we do business? For you to know how we started, I'm going to give you an example, which is not real, but just for you to understand. If I go okay, I'm going to mention Grupo Modelo, a beer company. They have around 13,000 companies. And then I create a factoring program for providers in order to give liquidity to them at a competitive level. When the provider registers with us, we give them a credit line automatically. That credit line can be used for different things. So the way of growing is using all the data of the customers we have that are registered with us. And then we use machine learning models, AI. We profile all the companies. If you tell me, okay, yeah, you have 28,000 customers, what I can tell you is that today I can see close to 1 million companies in the Xepelin network because of the electronic invoicing. So growing, it's very simple because you have the information, you know who your providers are, who your buyers are, and you also see if it was a provider that has other 50 customers that are working with us. So the way is like, okay, if you want to receive a payment from us, then okay, come and know our platform. And it usually works. We are not a huge operation in staff. In Mexico, it's only 100 people. And Mexico and Chile, we are 500. And out of those 500, 350 are people from technology and products. So that's our competitive advantage, that we can give credit lines very fast. We understand the problems that SMEX have in Mexico and in Chile. We want to do it for all Latin America. And all this data allow us to create models. And something else that is very important, it's very expensive for a bank to reach so many SMEX. You have to understand that they have like YC expenses and files. We use biometric technology and different kinds of tools, and that reduces the cost and the experience with the customers. To help the customers is very, very fast. So that's how we grew. Okay, thank you very much. Very interesting to close with this information. We might consider it for our companies. Thank you very much, Patrick, for your presentation regarding factoring.
Esta noche reciben un correo
Tonight, we are gonna send you an email with the recording of this presentation. You will get an article that summarizes the presentation, and you will also get a full catalog of the 2,600 fintech that exists in Latin America, so you can have a look at it and maybe find the fintech that can provide services to you according to your own market. Please be here with us for the third session of the learning week of Outsource to Lab. We will be talking with Alejandra Cano from Inteya. She's going to talk about remote equipment team or remote team, sorry, management. And that will be the topic for tomorrow, because since the pandemic, the remote teams are in fashion. Okay, see you tomorrow then. Thank you very much. You can also find me on LinkedIn. My name is Patrick Kilian. You can find me like that on LinkedIn. You can also write to me directly. And thank you very much again for this invitation to Connect Americas. And thank you everyone for your questions and for your time. See you tomorrow. Thank you.